How's it going, Rogues Gallery? Today we're going to open up and review all of the altered TCG starter decks. There are 6 of them here. It's kind of hard to hold all of them at once, but there are 6 here. We're going to open up every single one of these today, show you what comes inside, and do a review and talking about whether or not I think they are worth it for you as a new player of this brand new trading card game. Altered as a whole is a really interesting trading card game. In fact, it's one of the trading card games that I think, if you care about the trading card game industry at all, I think you should 100% be paying attention to this game. Regardless of whether you play it or not, or even have any interest in it, it's doing so much unique things in the industry that I think it's just, you just have to pay attention to it. From a really interesting QR code system where you scan in cards to have digital ownership. Don't worry, it's not like NFTs or anything like that. It's more like Light Seekers or Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions. You have digital ownership of the cards, and then you can print those cards. You can give those cards to your friends, but they can't use them in official tournaments unless they, of course, own those cards digitally. It's a really interesting, really cool, consumer-friendly way of doing it. No other TCG has, done this as far as I know, other than maybe the games that I mentioned, Light Seekers and Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions. It's just really cool, super unique, and then they also have, well, unique cards that are more or less procedurally generated within parameters that are like one-of-ones. There's a lot of stuff going on with this game, but let's start off with the starter decks and see where they hold up in the industry as starter products and whether or not they're worth it for you as a new player. Let's do it. All right, so here we have all 6 of the altered decks and all 6 of the, well, I'm gonna say major factions, but these are the only factions in the game, at least of the time of this recording. We have Muna, Bravos, Lyra, Axiom, Yzmir, and Ordis. And I will say these decks are ranging from around, I would say, $12.50 to $15 US. I've kind of looked around on various different places, and those are the price ranges that I could find. I wouldn't pay any more than $15 right now for these, because that seems to be more or less the MSRP, but I have seen some on sale for about $12.50. So we're gonna keep that in mind as we talk about these. And at that price, I think $15 for a starter deck of a brand new game is not a bad deal. I think it's a pretty good price. I generally think, speaking, over 20 bucks is getting into the expensive range for a starter deck. Unless it's a really fancy, nice starter deck with a lot of bells and whistles and sleeves and a deck box and all that kind of stuff. No, this is just a standard, 40 card starter deck with some extra little things, but nothing too crazy. I also want to mention that these decks are generally powered fairly evenly among the spread, though I have heard, and I will do a little bit of moving around, I have heard that the decks tend to be, I want to say, about this in terms of power ranking, starting with this being the strongest and Yzmir being the weakest. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what I've heard that the power rankings are, generally speaking, for the decks. However, that's not to say that the Yzmir deck can't beat the Ordis deck. Just generally, the Ordis deck is just easier to play and is therefore a lot more powerful if you're a new player. Same with Bravos, Muna. These are the easier decks, or these are the more difficult decks. So with that said, let's kind of go in reverse order, I think, starting with Yzmir. It's personally my favorite faction. Actually, you know what? Well, let's do a little bit of an alternation. Let's do Ordis, widely considered to be the strongest or easiest, and then we'll do Yzmir, and then we can talk about perhaps a little bit of the differences between them. But at the end of the day with this, it all boils down to what you like. And honestly, I would just go with whatever you think looks the coolest. They do have, various different play styles. This deck easily puts out a lot of units, basically, because the leader, the hero, you just pumps one out every single turn. So I like opening these from the bottom, by the way. It's just a little bit easier, and that goes into the recycling. So we have the deck. By the way, I will have already scanned all of the QR codes for the decks by the time that you watch this, so don't bother trying to snipe the QR codes or anything. Perhaps we'll do a giveaway at some point, but today I'm going to be using and playing with these decks personally. This is a little punch-out that has all of the various punch-outs that you might need. It actually has all 6 of the factions on here, as well as some +1, +2s, anchor, sleep, all that kind of good stuff. This is a like a how to play booklet, which I think is very nice. It just kind of folds out. It's just a little paper insert that just tells you how to play. That's like full colored, all that kind of nice stuff. And then this is just kind of like a standard paper playmat that is essentially the same thing as this playmat, right? I really don't like paper playmats, but you know, it is what it is. I do like how they have this though, and not just like a QR code. Even though the game is very, you know, QR code pilled, they still give you the physical how to play thing, and I really appreciate that. Not a lot of games do that, and so I think that's good. All right, let's kind of dive into this. This is the Ordis deck, and I will say from the start that there are no starter deck exclusive cards. Every card that comes in the starter deck, you can get in the booster packs. So this is just kind of like a, you know, secure digital ownership, new player, yada yada. So if you're a new player, scan this. It'll help you go to, you know, find the app and all that kind of stuff to download. I also really like that they include this stuff here. I will say the card stock doesn't feel quite as good as the booster boxes, but still pretty good. It's just a little bit stickier. Like you can see as I fan through the cards that some of them kind of stick together a little bit. But I do like that they include these phases of the day cards. So when you're new and you're learning, you can have this kind of on the field to reference for yourself so you know the order of the turn, which I think is really good. More games need these. Come on, like people just gave up on these at some point. Game devs are just like, whatever, they'll figure it out. We'll just throw it on a website or whatever. Yo, have the paper, you know, learn to play thing, and then have these little like reminder and these little tip cards. They're really useful to helping new players out, and I think it just helps the new player experience. So yes, I like this as well. Tells you what the icons do and tells you what these icons are. So at least if it's a little bit more complicated, you can go look it up in the paper insert. It's smart. Here are some tokens. This deck will need these Ordis recruit tokens. There's two different arts, but they're the same. I will note just a quick little thing. Each token has literally the exact same QR code, so you only need to scan a token once, so you can have your tokens. I will also say the card stock for the tokens is not as good as the main deck there. But yeah, we got a bunch of tokens, which is cool. This deck basically pumps out these tokens every single turn, so you have an extra little dude on your field so you can do various things, which makes this deck easy. Here's a common foiler, so you can foil out any one common card. And then these are needed. So I guess what I said earlier by that the starter deck doesn't have any unique cards to it, or doesn't have any like exclusive cards to the starter deck, that's not entirely true, because this is the only place where you can get these. These are what go, and let's set it up properly here. So we have hero, and then companion, and then we have these all set up, and I think it's actually like this. I think it's actually like this. Whoops, this way. Yeah. So it goes like this. And this is how you actually play the game. You need the little punch outs here. So you have your hero punch out on the hero side, and then you have the companion punch out. And the whole point of the game is to meet them together. It doesn't have to be necessarily in the middle, but you have to meet them together. And the person who does that first wins. It's a really interesting, different take on TCGs. I think it's really, really cool. But you can only get these cards here in the starter deck. But only one person needs these. So if you're playing against another person, you don't have them. As long as one person has them, that's fine. Even if you're playing in events, they might have, like the store might have them. So yeah. And basically what you do with these is these two always start, and then these ones get completely randomly shuffled. You shuffle them upside down and through them, because they could be either this way or this way. Yeah, so we're not going to go over how to play. I just wanted to go over like some of the basics of the starter deck. If you want to go to how to play, go over to main deck, and they have the best how to play video for Altered on the internet. Go watch it. It's really, really good. And Dan's a good friend of mine, and well, you may be seeing a little bit of some collaborations between us in the future. But anyway, I should also mention that if you bought the Kickstarter versions, I do believe the non-Kickstarter versions has the non-foil versions of the heroes, but in the Kickstarter version, all the heroes are foiled. So there's that. All right, so you always get the hero, and I do believe these decks don't change, right? These decks are what they are, and this deck, like I said, is a very like new player-friendly deck because it says at noon, create an Ordis recruit 1/1/1 soldier token in your hero expedition, and that's one of the tokens that we saw earlier. You just get one of these, which is great. It always goes in the hero expedition though, so pumps up this side and not this side. All right, so we're gonna go over these really, really quickly. Sticky note seals. We have charge, Ordis carrier. I do like how they have multiple copies of all the cards here. We have Jeanne d'Arc, beautiful. Kakoba, Legion Commander, got 2 copies. Ordis Spy, now we're talking. We have the Gatekeeper. The art in this game is incredible. Frog Prince, as I get to the Frog Prince. We have the Monolith Rune Scribe. These are all common cards. Ordis Cadets. We'll talk about the rarity in just a second, and when we get to some of the rares. We have Ordis Trooper. And here we have Open the Gates. And this is one of the rare cards. And interestingly enough, they didn't put the rare cards with the common cards. So here, let's show for an example here. So we have 2 of the common Ordis Troopers and then a rare Ordis Trooper. You can tell it's rare because it has the little R for rare, but you can also tell because it's full art. It doesn't have any of the border there. And the difference, well, it's just a strictly more powerful version, right? 1 cost, 1, 2, 2, and the normal version is a 1 cost, 1, 1, 1. There is a restriction in deck building. You can only have 15 rares in your deck and 3 uniques. Now that's the one thing I'm going to mention here. None of the starter decks come with uniques. So you see you have your pile of common cards, and then you have a handful of rares, right? Some of these rares are going to be just straight up upgraded versions of what's already in the deck, and some of them, like Ratatosker here, are faction shifted versions of cards. So it has a little F here. It still has the rare frame, but it's faction shifted in that it normally comes in a different faction, but this version comes in this faction. And so it looks like we have 8 rares, which is actually not bad, right? Like I said, your deck has a maximum limit of 15 rares, so the starter deck coming with 8 is a good little start. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Here's Jeanne d'Arc, 5/5, 2/2/2/2, and then when she leaves the expedition zone, create 2 1/1/1 soldier tokens in each of your expeditions. She's pretty great. And the regular version of Jeanne d'Arc that we saw earlier, I think she just costs more. Where is she? Where is she? Yeah. So the rare version is a 5/5. Or 5 cost. The common version is a 4 cost, but the rare version, I think, puts it in both. This says, when I leave the expedition zone, create... Oh, this one creates 2 soldiers in each of them, and this one creates 1 soldier in each of them. Yeah. So you pay a little bit more for the rare version, but she creates 2 soldiers. Deck size limit is 3 per 3 in each deck. So that's how many you can have of any given card with the same name, right? So you can't have any more Ordis Troopers because I have 1 rare and 2 commons. You can have 3 total. And then for the other rares, I didn't go over them too much. I just kind of glossed over them. So we have the Ordis Trooper, Open the Gates, Foundry Mechanic. I think this is another faction shifted card. We have Ordis Spy, Ratatosker, Monolith Rune Scribe, Kakoba, Legion Commander, and then that Jeanne d'Arc that we just said. And that's the Ordis deck. Once again, it is one of the easier decks to play, and it is considered to be one of the more powerful decks just because it puts out dudes pretty consistently, and the hero is one of the more consistent, essentially. So yeah, that is the Ordis deck. We'll check out the Yzmir deck. So if the other deck is more of like a go wide aggro style deck, then the Yzmir deck, which is personally my favorite one, is more of a control style deck. There's a lot more removal in this to, remove what your opponents are doing, as well as, more controlling type things that make your opponent, that prevent your opponent from doing stuff, essentially. All of the decks come with the same type stuff. So we have our little how to play mat, and then the punch out. The punch outs are the same. And then we have the deck. The decks are, once again, not going to be the same, and the tokens are not going to be the same. Though some decks just have all the tokens, just to have them, I've noticed. This one is Yzmir. Same little QR code, but, you know, different flavor, which I think is cool. Here's your Phases of the Day card. Also, still different flavor. I like how they flavored them all specifically to the... Oh, no, it's all just Yzmir. No, it's just Yzmir. Okay, I thought they were different per deck. Check that. But I still think these are fantastic. These are great ideas. And so here you see some different tokens, right? We have this Maw token, which I don't think is particularly used in this starter deck, but it's just an Yzmir token. And we have some Ordis recruits. We have a Brass Bug token and a Buddha token. We have a rare foiler in this one. Nice. I think you can get different foilers because I've opened up another Yzmir deck that just had a common foiler. Here are the little, I think these are called Tumult cards, but once again, these are the cards that you need to play the game. And then here is the deck itself with Kesha and Taru. Her ability is after you can only activate this if you're the first player. And after you just means you end your turn, and you just pass your turn to the other player. Normally when you pass, you can't play anything else. You pass, and then you are done. This one lets you pass and then continue playing stuff, which is great for control decks. So basically makes your opponent do something or force their hand to pass, and then you can react to what they do and then remove their stuff. It's great for a control deck, so really good. We have Kraken's Wrath. Once again, we have these are strong removals. Banishing Gate, once again, strong removals. Spycraft, really dig that card. Off You Go, really good removal, low cost. This dude is kind of a house. What is it? Sakurabru. It's a 7-cost, 4-cost, 4/4/4. But if you play it from your hand, your opponent's expedition facing mine moves backwards 1 region, which is real powerful. That card's really strong, but it's a 7-drop, right? We have Dorothy Gale. I really like her as well. She's a 5-drop when played from hand, but if you do play from hand, you can send target character to reserve. So you basically pick it from your opponent's field and then yeet it to reserve. So she's like a body, and she also removes something. Nice little 2-for-1. I like Dorothy a lot. Here we have Alice, Ketagirin Scholar, Baba Yaga. Look at the little, I would call it a deer. I think it is a deer. We have a Lady of the Lake. Beautiful, just kind of like just a stats unit. Yzmir Stargazer, another stats unit. A lot of basic kind of stuff here. Studious Disciple, and then we have our rares. We have Beauty Sleep, Ketagirin Alchemist. We have a rare Saka. I'm just gonna call him Saka. It's like Sakurabru, 7/4/5/5/5, and then same thing. Yeet him back 1, and then you can also discard him from reserve to draw a card, which is really good. I like this card a lot. Here's the rare Dorothy Gale. This one is super powerful because you get to do it when you play it from hand or from reserve, which is really good. Once again, I really like Dorothy. You have Alice, Baba Yaga. Got a faction shifted, no, it's just a rare Tooth Fairy. Just rare Tooth Fairy. This one is the faction shifted Monolith Archivist. Yeah, and this is considered to be the more difficult of the starter decks to play. A lot of people consider it one of the worst ones. I personally really like it. Next up, we have Lyra. Lyra is essentially the faction of artists and gamblers. I didn't kind of go over this, but we can go over it quickly and continue as we go. But Yzmir is basically like the magicians, the magic users. That's their faction identity. And the Ordis, as the name implies, they're about order, law. They're the military, that kind of stuff. Flavor-wise, they weren't my favorite, but I think I actually really like them gameplay-wise, the Ordis. Lyra is kind of like an oddball one. I feel like they're going to be a really popular faction, but, well, a lot of folks think it's one of the weaker ones, at least for a starter deck, because they use a lot more random mechanics. So once again, here's the kind of basic stuff that it comes with. Here we have the little new player thing. At least I have the different QR codes for, well, not different QR codes, but the different like art or whatever for all these. Well, let's see if we're gonna need to bust out we're gonna bust out the knife. Sometimes the pull tab is great, and sometimes the pull tab just doesn't exist. And that's true for everything that has a pull tab. So here we have the Lyra. We have the helpful little cards. We have some Ordis recruit tokens. We have some brass bug tokens. We have Buddha, and this one is just a common foiler. We also have some of the Tumult cards. These are the same ones, by the way. You don't get different ones. They're literally the same ones. And then we have the actual deck. We have Navenka and Blotch. So she kind of exemplifies a lot of the stuff going on in this deck. So you can activate her, and she says target a character you control, then roll a die. On a 6+, it gets anchored. 2 or 5, it gets a boost, or 1, it sends it to reserve. Boo. So pretty good if you get 2 to 6. Pretty bad if you get a 1. So yeah, there's a lot of like risk management and dice rolling in this deck. We have Paint Prison. We have All In. I do really like the Lyra. We have Asmodeus, the Dark Lord. We have the Hatter, mad or otherwise. Ouroboros Croupier. I've actually got a unique one of this dude who is really, really good. We have Lyra Chronicler. We have Lyra Cloth Dancer. Beautiful artwork. We have Esmeralda. She's got her goat with her. We have Tanuki. I really do love the Tanuki. Dude, look at his face. Oh, I love that dude. I do like the Tanuki. We have Lyra Scald, which is great. We have, I mean, it's a fine card. It's just a stat card, but I like the art. And Scalds are cool. We have Hathor, which is a deity. Very, very pretty card. Ouroboros Trickster. And then we have our rares. We have Off You Go, which is a nice little removal. We have Paint Prism. We have the Ouroboros Lyra Bastion. This is one of the landmarks. We have Katagiran Mage Dancer. We have a rare Asmodeus, a rare Esmeralda. She got 2 goats now. Tanuki, and then the Trickster. And if you didn't notice, the art actually kind of like gets fancier. I was gonna say upgrades, but it gets a little bit different as the rarity increases, which is kind of cool. And once again, it's pretty consistent across the board. You get 8 rares in your starter deck. So yeah, that's the Lyra deck. It's all about rolling dice and kind of like risk management and crazy effects. Next up, we have the Axiom. This is one of the factions that spoke to me originally. It was Axiom and Yzmir. Axiom is the faction of artificers, builders. Gameplay-wise, they focus on making tokens, but not quite the same as the Ordis, where the Ordis makes the little 1/1 tokens. This one makes 2/2 tokens, or 1/1/1 and 2/2/2. 2/2/2 3. There's 3 twos, 3 twos. It's gonna be difficult to get out of the two stats into the 3 stats for altered. But yeah, they make some tokens, and they focus more on landmarks and permanence like that. So when you're playing altered, you have you can have up to 2 landmarks in play at the end of your turn. You can play as many as you want, but at the end of your turn, you have to basically pick 2 to keep around. So that's one of the biggest challenges with this deck, is picking the right 2 landmarks. So here we have our little new player card, as well as our Phases of the Day and Icons card. We have our brass bugs. So these are the brass bugs we're going to be making. They're 2/2/2s. Oh, nice. They're a little bit bigger than the Ordis recruits, because you can see the Ordis recruits are just 1/1/1s, but they're a little bit harder to make. So keep that in mind. So we get some recruit tokens. Oh, we got a unique foiler in this one. Nice. That's pretty good. All the other starter decks I've opened have been common foilers, so I don't actually know how rare the unique foiler is. This might actually be the only card that's random in the starters. And I will say the foilers are really cool. So basically what they are is you scan them in, you have digital ownership, and then you can apply this foiling to this rarity card that you own in the digital app, which is any of these cards, right? So I don't have any, this doesn't come with any uniques, but if you pull a unique from a booster pack, then you can use this to foil it out and then have them print that card in foil for you. And you can do that as many times as you want, as many of the foilers as you have. So it's really cool. So if you have 3 unique foilers, you can foil 3 different uniques and have them print them out, which is cool. Here's the Tumult cards. I'd like to see them do different Tumult cards in the future. Not just different combinations, but like, I don't know, like different art and that kind of stuff. I think that would be really cool. We have Hero, champion, like maybe in different sets. I'm not really 100% sure on that. So the hero here is Sierra and Oddball. I really like her quite a bit. She says, when you play a permanent with hand cost 3 or more, you can exhaust her to create a brass bug token at target expedition. So you can make it in whatever expedition you want, and it's a bigger, which is pretty nice. But you have to play a permanent with hand cost 3 or more. Hand cost is the blue cost on the top. So we have Kellon Burst. The other reason this faction I think is funny is their energy, Kellon, is really close to my name, which is Kellen. It's very close. Just add an extra L, get rid of the O and put an E. That's like two letters off. We have Brass Bug Hub. This is a landmark, 3-hand permanent landmark. And like I said, the landmarks are really good for this deck, but you have to be careful to not, play too many landmarks or keep the ones that are most important. The Brass Bug Hive is crazy good though, because when you play it, you get a Brass Bug token, and then at noon, you also get a Brass Bug token every turn. So you just get a Brass Bug token every single turn. This card's super good. We have Kellon Elemental. It's a me Elemental. Foundry Mechanic. Axiom Salvager. Geon Assembly Overseer. Just straight up, it's Amelia Earhart. The unique version has like a dude standing next to her. We got 3 little pigs. Axiom Scrambler. Foundry Armorer. And then we have our rares, so we have this rare Brass Bug Hive, which, same thing, but this one makes 3/3/3 robots, like 3/3/3 Brass Bugs, because it says create a Brass Bug token when you play it, and then at noon you create another Brass Bug token, but whenever a robot joins your expeditions, it gets a boost. So basically it makes 3/3/3 Brass Bugs. I think getting a playset of this one as your rares is really good. We have a Kellonic Generator that lets you draw some cards. We have Ouroboros, Lyra Bastion. So we got this in the Lyra deck. This is a faction-shifted version of that card, so you can play it in Axiom. This is not a game where you can mix the factions, except for the faction-shifted cards that are already pre-mixed, I guess is the way you can say it. Same with this Frog Prince, faction-shifted Frog Prince, Geon, 3 little pigs, and Axiom Scrambler. Yeah, so I like this deck a lot as well. It's sort of similar. Well, it's not really similar to the Ordis. They both make tokens, but it's a bit of a different flavor. Whereas the Axiom deck it makes tokens, but it also likes to have those landmark cards. Next up, this is Muna. So this is another one of my favorites. This is the faction of nature and animals and that kind of stuff. And aesthetically speaking, I think it's really pretty. Gameplay-wise, I actually like it quite a bit. It's all about pumping your dudes, sometimes keeping them around, pumping them up and keeping them around. It's one of the ones that really cares about large units, and as such, it can actually be somewhat susceptible to the Yzmir deck that has a lot of strong removal, right? So if your opponent is anchoring something, and they're playing Muna, and they're just anchoring something, and they just have something huge that keeps sticking around. Well, the Yzmir deck is much easier at removing that kind of stuff. So here's our little Kitsune with the new player thing, phases of the day, and icons, of course. This one has some Ordis recruits and some Brass Bug recruits. I do like, or Brass Bug tokens. I do like how all the decks come with tokens, even if they don't use the tokens. I think it's just, they don't shortchange you any cards. You still get the same number of cards no matter what deck you buy, even if it's not a token deck. And so these tokens can still be useful for other decks. You can give them to your friends. You can use them for whatever else. I still like that they do that. And here's just a common foiler. Here's our Tumult cards. And then we have our actual deck, Teja and Nara. I think this one is another really easy hero to play because she just says the first character you play each afternoon gains 1 boost. So basically the first dude you play gets a power buff, which I think is really cool. Really easy to play with, hard to mess up. It's great. I like it. Beauty Sleep is a nice little removal. It can... sleep is an interesting mechanic. So Sleep says, during dusk, ignore its statistic. During rest, it doesn't go to reserve, and it loses sleep. So basically, it doesn't count for your points for 1 round, but it also doesn't go away. So you can either use it on one of your dudes. So say you're massively winning a lane, massively winning your hero lane or your companion lane, and you don't need one of the things. Well, you can sleep your dude to keep it around for next turn. Or if your opponent has like a really big dude and they're winning with that dude, then you can sleep their character, their dude, and make it so you can win that lane for this turn. I like sleep. I think it's an interesting mechanic. We have Nurture, Meditation Training. Once again, really like the art. We have this Cone Man, Coniferal Cone Man. Cernunos, like this druid type character. We have a Muna Druid. We have a Daughter of Yggdrasil. Inari. There's a lot of more like Japanese inspired stuff, I think across the board, but I definitely noticed a lot in Muna. Yongsu Verdant Weaver. I should just say Asian inspired, not specifically Japanese. But Inari and Kitsune are definitely Japanese inspired. We have Sneezer Shroom. This is one of the anchored cards. Pretty good. We have Spindle Harvesters. Look how cute these little dudes are. They're so cute. Little plant animals. Here's the Kitsune. Got 3 of her. And then we have our rares. We have Physical Training. Nice little buff. Target character gets 3 boosts. Man, giving the 3 boosts to something with anchored, like this shroom. Anchored means during a rest, they don't go to reserve, so they stick around for 1 extra turn. So what you can do is you can play the Sneezer Shroom as your first card, and so it'll get a buff counter, right? It'll get a buff, so it'll be 2/2/2s. And then you can play this to give it 3 more boosts. So it would be 5/5/5. Really, really good. Really annoying. We have Nurture. Another little boost card. Meditation Training. Beautiful artwork on that one. Another little Sneezer Shroom. Look at that. Look at that little guy. Just a little guy. We have a Lyra Cloth Dancer. This is a faction shifted. We got a beefed up Cone Man. We got Parvati. And we have a Yongsu Verdant Weaver. Yeah, I do like this one a lot as well. I think one of the best things about this is I genuinely think you don't really have a bad option going into this. You have some decks that are a little bit more challenging, like the Lyra deck with the dice roll stuff, like this deck just being a lot more big-brained, control-y style. But, I mean, just generally speaking, pick whatever you like. I mean, honestly, that's the mantra that I go by. By the way, this is Bravos. So Bravos is the faction of, like, athletes and of, like, I don't know, like speed, bodybuilding, warriors, that kind of vibe. Very sporty style. And we got our good boy Sun Wukong. I don't think the pull tab is gonna be friends with this one either. Yeah, cool. Maybe it's more like adventurers and athletes kind of vibe. Though I think there's adventurers in all of them. Like Amelia Earhart, literally one of the world's, like considered one of the world's most famous adventurers, is in Axiom. So here we have the new player card. Oh, this one's real sticky. Well, not really sticky, it's just kind of like very tough to get apart. So we have a Phase of the Day, we have the icons, we have Buddha. This one's actually super relevant to this one. We finally get to have use for our Buddha. The Ordis recruits. We have a Brass Bug. We have a Ma. One of the Yzmir heroes does a ooh, another rare foiler. Let's go. We have our Tumult cards. And then here we have our hero. This is where we're going to use our Buddha token. So this is Kojo and Buddha. Bravos heroes. At noon, if you're the first player, create a 2/2/2 Buddha companion in your companion expedition. As I knock the camera just so much. Yeah, so once again, any of these factions that make tokens for free are just really good. And a lot of people consider this to be one of the best of the starters because of that. You don't get it every turn. You only get it if you are the first player, but you get it basically every other turn, essentially. The way this game works is during each round, you're going to be the first player or the second player, and then you play a card, and then your opponent plays something or passes, and you play something or pass, and then it goes back and forth. Kind of like Runeterra, if you're familiar with Runeterra. We have Intimidation. Look at the little guy. Speaking of Runeterra, these things reminds me of like a Poro. We have Physical Training. We saw this earlier as a faction shifted card. We have Atlas. Big old Atlas. Atlas has a really interesting keyword. Gigantic. I am considered present in each of your expeditions. So he gives +3 to both sides, which is good. I mean, this is big, 5 cost. We have Sun Wukong, great card, gets 2 boosts when you play him from reserve. The rare versions and the unique versions of Wukong can be pretty nuts. We have Haven Warrior, Haven Bouncer, a lot of buff characters. We have Kappa, and then we just have Kappa. A little Kappa. Good stats. Haven Trainee. We have Bravos Pathfinder, beautiful art. We have Bravos Tracer. Isin Boshi, or Boshi. Art on that's really cool. Here's Ratatosker. So this is the regular version of Ratatosker. And now we have a rare physical training. We have the Spindle, Muna Bastion. So this is the Muna landmark, but it's faction shifted. We have Dorothy Gale. So this is a faction shifted Dorothy. She does the same thing as regular Dorothy, but she's faction shifted. So she's a 5-drop, and then from hand, you can send a character to reserve. Really sweet. I still like her. We have Shenlong. This card is sweet. 6/6 for 9/9/9 with tough 1, which means your opponent's spells and abilities cost 1 more when they target Shenlong. Really cool card. We have a Sun Wukong, rare version. We have a Bravos Tracer, Haven Warrior, and then the final card is our rare Ratatosker. And those are all 6 of the altered starter decks. And like I said, if I had to order these, and this is what I've, gained, the knowledge that I've gained from other players and, folks in the space, I think it's close to this. Though I feel like these two are like possibly interchangeable. But I feel like this is kind of like where it is, where the Ordis deck is considered to be the easiest to play, and then Bravos, and then Muna, Axiom, Lyra, and finally Yzmir. But at the end of the day, seriously, just pick whatever faction hero that you resonate with most. I think the decks are, and I've only played these very, very few times personally, but from what I've gathered and from what I've seen and read and analyzed, that this game is balanced enough and fun enough that you just pick whatever one you like and just go with that. And I think you'll have the best experience in doing so. And then from there, you can look into building, actual, tuned decks and kind of going with what you want. So yeah, that's Altered. I highly recommend these. I think the game is really cool. It's really interesting. It has like these unique mechanics. This QR code thing where you can print out the cards is also super, super unique. It feels very, very consumer friendly, so you can print decks for your friends. They just can't use them in official tournaments. And yeah, I really dig this game. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be covering it here on the channel, but if you would like to see more, just let me know. If the videos do well and people like it, and it's a game that I'm thoroughly enjoying, then I don't see why I wouldn't make more content. And I am enjoying this quite a bit. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And yeah, we'll see you next time.